So, Jason, what is a organizational change that has taken place in the workplace for you?
That is a very good question, and I'm glad you've asked. An organizational change that I went through, and I could not have answered this a couple years ago. I started my own company about 2 years ago. I partnered up with an individual, and we had the best of plans to build our future together with this company. And as we worked together, this other person's name, he was initially an investor only in the company. And so we started to build our company together. And as we built the company, this person was less and less involved. And when we got to a certain point, we decided that we could not move forward together as partners anymore. And so we not only had an organizational change, we had a company-wide change. We had to literally close the business as the entity that it existed. And the entity was the Affinity Group. That was our first business together. And through this organizational change, or company change, I learned a lot, and I learned about working with partners. And not that partners are bad, but sometimes you have different directions. And so we had to create a brand new company, brand new entity per se, and totally rebrand what we were known as. So we went from the Affinity Group to Ashwood Grove. And now this new company has had a lot of backwards and forwards in order to get back to where we were. And but longer term, I think that we're both going to be happier. The other investor / partner now is working on their own interest, and sometimes you can butt heads a little bit, and sometimes you might have different vision of where you want a company to go, and you would not have anticipated those type of things early on in when you're sitting at a table dreaming about what you want your company to become. And so sometimes you just have to get into it. You have to get your elbows dirty and build the business, and then you have to find out some of those things. Sometimes it's done through conflict. Sometimes it's done through business. When one partner wants to go one direction and you want to go the other, if you're not going the same direction, your employees and your team will feel that, and it can create some tension. So.
So I guess, it sounds like you pretty much iterated the stakeholders right there. So it would definitely be you're the investor,
John, me and John, that's right.
And then what would be like some other ones that you could see were some stakeholders?
Those were the main stakeholders in that entity. We had one other.
Okay.
We had one other stakeholder, but that stakeholder was such a small piece of the steak.
Okay.
If you
Sure.
put it that way, that he left before anything started to go awry.
Gotcha.
And so because the business had not picked up,
Okay.
and our directions were already going in different directions,
Okay.
but because his piece of the total pie was so small, we would have to have grown so much quicker. And so it came down to me and the original investor.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha. What were you trying to accomplish in this huge change, and then
What were we
What all
trying to
happened?
accomplish? I think we were in survival mode at the time.
Gotcha.
Sometimes in business you do things very methodical, but sometimes you do things you have to react to situations. And we had some big problems that had come up in the company, and with my previous partner, and because of that, we had to make decisions to form a new corporation. kind of on the side. And then we had to communicate it to each other that we no longer can do business together. And we had to, and so you had to have one business over here that you could not really start to work that business until you went through the entire process of, quote unquote, the legal term is dissolving that company. So we had to dissolve a company. And believe it or not, dissolving a company can be just as difficult or more difficult than creating a company, because you don't just cease to exist when you say you're done. When you close it, you have all these partners and providers and accounting and everything else that can go on for a year later that you've got to really close out. So dissolving the company after we finally came to a consensus, and I know it's going to lead into your next question, but it was not a clean dissolving at the first. Now, I'll tell you. I'll jump after the fact. Yes, we're in a good light now, but you're not in the best light of each other sometimes when you're trying to take apart something that you built together. It's kind of like a marriage.
Yeah.
When you commit to each other and then you decide things aren't working, it can get messy, but it doesn't have to. And but that was a big piece of the change, was dissolving the other company. And then after it was completely dissolved, and when I say dissolved, it with all these partners, all the paperwork, all the taxes and stuff that doesn't even happen until 6 months later, and figure out all the money and everything else, make sure all the bills are continued to paid so you're not bankrupting your company. Then you can start to generate the new company, brand the new company, build it and everything else. So
wow. Okay. So just to say it real quick, what would be a time in all of this that you experienced in IPOH?
IPOH. I love that you use IPOH. I would say that it started soon after our initial problems. And when we discovered that there was a big problem, with a provider that we were working with. And it was brought to light from my previous partner that caused some of the problem. And it caused intense heat between the two of us. Sometimes best words were not exchanged. We respect each other, but at the same times, when there's so much on the line, you can't always communicate the way you would want to. And so it got much worse before it got better. We had to involve legal means and we have a good lawyer that helped us to sort things through, kind of like a mediator, to help to figure out where our differences are, where they're the same. It took some sitting down to really go item by item of dissolving this company, what would be fair, what's not fair, and so that was that entire process was it was hard. It's trying on you personally, on the company, because you want to create this new company. But before you can create this new company, you can't even start till everything else is dissolved, and you have to keep the spirits alive in the company. But you have this intense heat going on, and so after we got through that and came to some resolutions on things, then at that point we were able to start moving forward.
Wow, so you didn't even start focusing on the company that you are today before you even
we could not
finished all of the...
We had to finish all that legally, and then we could start up the new process and everything else. So, yeah.
And then was it like you were starting at like ground zero when you got to your new company, or did you kind of did some things transition over pretty well? Or
I would say that's a very good question. It was not at ground zero. And the reason it was not at ground zero is because what you learn. And I'm going to take a cliche and just say that sometimes the knowledge that you have is more important than other assets, and it become your biggest asset. So the things I learned about running my own business and about managing people, it made it easier because I didn't have to strike out 20 times about things I wanted to learn about. And so I was able to more quickly transition and get accounting software up and going and get database software up and going and get all these things up and going because I learned so much and I did not have to start and do the research. What is the best product for this and that? I already knew all that. So, and as for partners, there was some starting over, and for customers. But as for the infrastructure of the business, that actually it has excelled very quickly over the past time period since I had to rebuild the company. So
cool. And then one last question I got for you. Just tell me about how successful the end results were, and then was there a big difference in what you sought to accomplish at the beginning and then what your end results were?
Well, it turned out totally different than I thought.
Gotcha.
It didn't. The timing didn't happen the way I wanted to, and it took much longer than I thought. But we're still alive. We're in business. We made it through a very big organizational change. Most companies that have to totally go to nothing and rise back up don't make it. So the fact that we made that through that, it took longer, but I think that we're going to end up being a more strong, and we're going to have better roots that go way down because we know that I don't have a partner now and we're all part of a team now. So
awesome, man. Well, thanks a lot, Jason.